Good morning, one and all. I hope you are all well. Lovely to see you on this bright morning. Good morning to Aiton, to Clarice, to Peter, to Carol, and to Estelle. So usually, as we're all aware, we go through Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avos. That's what we've been doing the last few weeks. I just heard a wonderful share from somebody called Rav Moshe Elephant. I don't know if you've heard of the name. He is a lecturer in Talmud in America, and he was visiting. And one of the things that he spoke about was he's an expert in kashrus. I don't know if you've heard of OU, the Orthodox Union, but it is the largest kashrus authority in the world. And he was sharing insights in the processing and production of food. And they have factories all around the world that they are supervising, and it was just fascinating to hear and to learn, some of the complexities that we may not be, aware of. We think just one little example that he said, is that we would think that if I buy something tinned and I look at the ingredients and there's nothing wrong with it, it must be okay. It must be okay. And he was explaining that there is a big difference in the tinning of vegetables and fruit that you find on your shelves. So he explained that, although of course, if you buy, tinned peaches or whatever it is, that if it says tinned peaches and that's all it has, that's all that's in it. But he said, if most of the tinning, he said, comes from the process is carried out with fruit and veg in China. Now, whereas in America, he said that you will have a small number of workers in a factory, and therefore during the season, when it is the season for production of this fruit and veg, then they will have all the workers there and they lay them off when there isn't when it's not the right season. That's not the case in China, because they are employing so many hundreds and thousands of workers in these plants, these production plants that are vast. Therefore they cannot afford for one day to close down that factory. So if there is no fruit and veg to put in tins, what is it that they are doing on the off season? And he said that these factories will basically tin other products on the same production lines. So for example, it may be that there'll be meat, it may be that there'll be other things that they will use on the same production line. And obviously then, the danger is that they will just continue then going back to the fruit and the vegetables. It was just one illustration. He told a very amusing story. I don't know how many people are into after eights here. I used to love after eights. Remember after eights? You sat after your dinner. Now it's more Bendix mints, I think, but it used to be after eights. Now I remember many years ago that after eights were considered parav. And everyone used to have after on a Friday night meal, used to have an after eights. So he told the story because after eights are made by Nestle, and they are produced actually in York. And they had a mashgiach, a supervisor, who went up when Nestle were contacted when Nestle contacted OU and said, we'd like you to give the hechsher. So they went up. They sent him a mashgiach from Manchester. He went into the place and he carried out an inspection, and he phoned this Rav Moshe Elephant in a frantic hurry. And he said to him, what's the problem? He said, the ingredients, are absolutely fine. He says, but for those that know anything about chocolate, you'll notice, and I didn't know this beforehand, that sometimes the chocolate, it looks like it's gone bad, doesn't it? Anyone remember that, recognize this phenomenon? You open up a bar of chocolate and it's got like an off color to it. The chocolate's changed. It's not the dark color. It's gone a bit white on top. And it looks like it's gone bad. It hasn't actually. What he explained was that is a reaction to humidity, and therefore if there's any humidity, then that will change the color ever so slightly of the chocolate, which doesn't give it that dark brown appearance. So what happened? The the food technologist, the food tech, came up with a genius way that they could have after eights and they wouldn't change color. I remember buying after eights and many times throwing them out because the color seemed to have changed. Remember this? Anyone relate to this? So, anyways, so they decided that what they would do is they would put in a bit of butter oil, ever so slight amount of butter oil, and that they said would counter the ill effects of the humidity, and therefore the chocolates wouldn't change color. Brilliant. So Moshe Elephant said to him, well, that's not a problem. Butter oil is kosher, so we can give the hechsher. What's the problem? So this rabbi said to him, you don't understand. You see, in England, when do people have after eights? People have after eights after they've eaten dinner. That's the etiquette. On a Friday night, in all the homes up and down the country, they'll break open the after eights, pass them round, and everyone has an after eight. So after you've had a meat meal, people, if we give the hashgacha, are going to think that it's okay to have that. We can have it with a meat meal. So there's no kashrus problem, but there is a problem with having it with meat. And one of the things that shows us is sometimes we have to be, I guess, aware of the social graces and how that interacts with halacha and kashrus. So that's just one point that I wanted to make. I just want to share with you one other insight for those that weren't in shul on Shabbos, and for those that were, they'll either hear it again or it will be news to them after they may have fallen asleep during my sermon on Shabbos. No one here, of course, but just in case. So the idea is as follows. If I was to ask you about who are the greatest influences on society, who would they be? So you would say to yourself, well, it depends which era we live. If we go back, a couple of millennia, so there was no question. It was the philosophers, Socrates, Plato, some of the great philosophers. They were the great thinkers. So they would be. And then if you go down a few generations and you come to, for example, the doctors, scientists, think of Einstein, you think of Newton, they were exceptionally influential over their generation. And they had a voice beyond even the sciences in which they were experts. And then you go beyond that, you'll see that it became politicians and statesmen. You think about some of the great politicians and statesmen, Winston Churchill and the like. So they had an influence far greater. Napoleon Bonaparte, as a leader. These leaders had an influence across the whole of society. Then you come to the society, and I guess in the 80s and 90s, you would say that it was celebrities, it was pop stars, it was football players. They had the greatest influence. Now we have a new phenomenon. We've fallen even further down. And what is the latest? The latest innovation in terms of influence is called social media influencers. The influencers on social media. And these people, whereas in generations gone by, if you think about the scientists, the thinkers, the philosophers, the politicians, they had influence because they were respected for what they had accomplished and achieved. They achieved great things in their lives. As a consequence, people were influenced by their conduct, by their behavior beyond the realm of their expertise. Now we have people in our generation that they are influencing our youngsters, despite the fact they have achieved and accomplished absolutely nothing. Their expertise is merely in persuading people to be influenced by them. And that's exceptionally worrying because in essence, then they don't have anything really to offer, and it makes our society even more superficial. I mean, so much of it is about cosmetics, about makeup, about beauty, about fitness. it's very, very superficial, and the danger is that it puts an emphasis and an overemphasis for our youngsters on our looks, on the way, on our bodies, and the way that we're meant to, portray ourselves. And that is exceptionally pressurizing for youngsters, that they've got to appear a certain way. There's huge, huge pressures on our youngsters nowadays. We always like to, I think, hark back to the old days and to our grandparents and how everyone had it so much harder. And it's true in terms of the physical lifestyle and the fact that they didn't have the luxuries and pleasures of and comforts of the world that we live in. That's true. But I think in terms of the social pressures, I don't think it's ever been greater than now. And our youngsters are bombarded with messages, subliminal messages and direct messages from society and from the social media, which is so, so dangerous, and we have to be so careful in its usage. But I think there is a fundamental lesson, a message for us, and that is that we have to decide who and what influences us, whose opinions are worthy of us listening to. There is a second message, and that is that one of the blessings that Abraham received is that the Jewish people, his descendants, us, would be like the stars in heaven. And therefore, if we are like the stars in heaven that shine so bright, radiating their light, that means that we are, in fact, as a light to the nations, the greatest influence in society and on humanity. More than the Kylie Jenners and the Ronaldos and all the other influencers in the world, we, beyond 250 million followers, we can have billions of followers. And we do, because the Jewish people over the course of the millennia have had the greatest impact and influence on the values, on the ethics, on the culture and mindset of societies. So please God, we should continue to shine and radiate our light to the world at large, bringing positivity and hopefully the right values and ethics to all around us. And in that way, please God, we'll see great things and the ultimate redemption. Wishing Rabbi Yitzi and Rebbetzin Shira Blachman a big mazel tov this morning on the naming of their baby girl. The baby was called Rachel. Big mazel tov to the Blachmans. Take care, everyone. Lovely to have a simcha and shul. Wishing everyone well. Have a great day.